All right, let's get started. How was the break so far? Incredible amount. Okay, okay, good so far. Okay. So I don't know, for some reason I lost my voice during the break. So I stayed in my apartment. I never went anywhere, but I don't know. I hope it will fix pretty soon. So far, we talked about coupon bonds, right? So when you talk about coupon bonds, one of the major characteristics is like they will pay periodic payments, right? You can think about coupon rate is more than 0%, right? We will pay periodic payments. Now, if we say zero coupon bonds, what you can think of? What is your expectations for the coupon rate? 0%. So there should not be any periodic payments, right? So in general, we expect for coupon bonds, periodic payments, and in the expirations, periodic payments plus face value, right? But if we say zero coupon bonds, coupon rate is 0%, that means 0, 0, 0 plus face value. Then how can we generate return if we want to invest in zero coupon bonds? What is the source of generating return on zero coupon bonds?
Need to buy it for less than the face value.
Absolutely. If we go back a couple of classes, we know that discount loan, right? Can you remember? When you say discount loan, we say that the loan will be issued today less than the face value of the loan, right? So you can think of zero coupon bond is similar to a discount loan. The bond will be issued today lower than the face value. Lower than the face value. And the difference between the price and the face value, known as discount, which is your return as an investor. Make sense? So if you read here, yield is coming from the difference between the price you pay today and the face value or the par value. There are different names for zero coupon bonds. Sometimes they call zeros, deep discount bonds. Some good examples: treasury bills and principal only treasury strips are good examples. These are some good examples of zero coupon bonds. Now let's do an example, then it should be clear. So if we read this problem, face value $1,000, which is this one. Zero coupon bonds, that means no payments periodically, right? Matures in 2.5 years. How much will you receive for the bond if the market yield to maturity is 8%? Assume semi-annual compounding. So what should be the price of this bond if it matures in 2.5 years? Face value $1,000, yield to maturity 8%. So you can think of just finding the present value. That's it. So if we remember the formula, present value is basically future value 1 plus discount rate to the power t, right? So here future value is 1,000, right? Discount rate 8% semi-annual compounding. So what is the appropriate rate for this problem? If discount rate 8% semi-annual compounding, what is the appropriate rate? Absolutely. 2.5 years of maturity, semi-annual compounding. What is the appropriate T here? Find the present value. You can use the formula on the calculator. I know you guys know the process. How much you got? Absolutely, 821. Can you do it on the partial calculator? Right, N is 5, I over Y is 4, future value 1000, payment 0, complete present value, right? So any questions about zero coupon bonds, about the basic structures? How can you find the present value? Good so far? Okay, floating rate bonds. So moving back, coupon bonds. So far, what we learned, coupon bonds pay fixed rate of coupon periodically, right? So let's say we want to invest in a coupon bond having a coupon rate of 5%. Let's say bond has a maturity of 3 years. Face value 1000. Let's see. What should be the changes on the timeline? From this timeline we have, what should be the changes? No idea. Spring breaks makes us to forget everything. What should be the changes? Absolutely. How much it should be? 55% on 1000. So the key point is periodic payment is fixed each period, right? Doesn't matter market interest rate. Doesn't matter. On the market, interest rate going up, going down, doesn't matter. On a floating rate bonds, floating rate. So the name has the definition. Before each periodic payments, coupon rate will be reset based on market index or some sort of market factor. If you Google, LIBOR is a good reference point for floating rates. LIBOR, London Interbank Offering Rate, which is similar to Fed funds rate here in US. So for a floating rate bonds, they follow some sort of market index that tracks the market interest rate. So before each periodic payments, what they do, reset this amount. Depending on the market interest rate, it could be 5%, 4%, 3%, 6%, 7%, 8%. So they will tell you each period will follow LIBOR, CPI, something like that. And based on that, we'll pay you the bill. That's the only difference. Make sense? So let's say 4%, 6%, 5.5% on each settlement, payment settlement, coupon settlement date. These are the market interest rate. On that case, your periodic payment should be 40, 60, 55. Instead of the fixed 50 for these 3 periods. That's why it's floating rate. What are some benefits? What are some disadvantages? One of the benefit is like each payment settlement coupon is reset and very close to the market. There is less price risk. There is less price risk. That's one of the benefits. So, did you guys follow Silicon Valley Bank? What happened with them? Did you guys know what happened? What is the reasons for the problem? You should know it because we are talking about bonds in the class at a point where Silicon Valley Bank is having the same problem. Anyone want to explain what happened with Silicon Valley Bank?
I mean, I heard they closed down. I think a lot of people were trying to be bankrupt. They just didn't have enough money to pay out. Everybody was trying to
What caused the bank run?
their long-term securities.
What happened with the long-term securities?
They sell them at a loss.
Why?
They're too risky.
It's not too risky. Kevin,
I remember because I did watch a couple videos explaining the situation over break. And I'm trying to remember if the specific bonds that they had invested heavily in were contingent on interest rates either being very high or very low. And regardless of which one, it ended up being the opposite. And so they ended up having some bonds at a huge loss, and certain parties saw that and said, oh, the bank is taking this huge loss, they're getting the money out. And everyone started to just pile in and do the same thing.
so did you follow what Kevin said? Did you know what is MBS, mortgage-backed securities? So mortgage-backed securities, you can think of it's a real estate loans, okay? Kind of, we don't want to go deep. Let's say it's a real estate loan. So when you borrow for your home, you decided on a fixed rate, let's say 2%, 3%, depending on what's going on that time in the market. When you initiate the loan, when you take the loan for the very first time, what is the market rate? Depending on that, both borrower and lender agreed, take the loan for next 30 years, right? During 2019, 2020, interest rate was super low. Now interest is super high. You can think of mortgage-backed loan similar to a bond. So if market interest rate is high right now, what is the risk they are facing? Price risk. Right? Because most of the mortgage-backed securities they issued in 2019, 2020 was in a very low coupon rate, a very low interest rate. But now the interest is really high. 30-year fixed rate mortgage is around 6.5 to 7% right now, which was maybe very low at that time. So what are they facing? Price risk. On the asset side, their asset value goes down significantly because of price risk. Makes sense? Now depositors are concerned. If we go to the bank, should we get our deposits? How they gonna give us our deposits? Now they started going to the bank, withdrawing the fund, deposits. This is called bank run, because people are running to the bank. That caused the problem. Similar to what going with Credit Suisse in Switzerland. Now, if they issue floating rate bonds, the good thing is lower prices. They may not face significant amount of price risk if interest rate in the market shift a lot over the period. Because if you compare 2019, 2020 versus now, interest rate really shifted a lot, a well lot. Because Fed want to reduce what? What Fed want to reduce? Inflation. So now we know a little bit about what's going on with Silicon Valley Bank. Moving to our original point, floating rate bonds. If we invest in floating rate bonds, each periodic payment dates, the coupon will be reset. What is the benefit? Price risk is less. Make sense? Some disadvantage could be from the borrower side. If that goes up a lot, borrower has to pay a lot, right? Because in 2020, any homeowner make a loan at 2%, let's say, or 3%, let's say, and they said, okay, let's do a floating rate bonds. Now they're already 7%, really, really high, right? So that's the kind of part from the borrower side. But the advantage from the lender side, investor side, price risk is less. Make sense? Okay, so I already told you they follow some sort of market index, could be inflation, could be LIBOR, something similar. Less price risk. Now, some terms and conditions on the floating rate bonds. Although they will agree, they will follow the market, but sometimes they may say that I will set the range. I will not pay or I will not receive interest rate after a certain point. So let's say today they issued a floating rate bonds and they decided on the LIBOR. Let's say on the LIBOR, I'll pay each period debts on the LIBOR index, on the LIBOR rate. For next, let's say 5 years. Today, LIBOR rate is, let's say, 3%. So LIBOR could move anywhere, right? During that time. Now they can say that even if LIBOR move above 5%, I will not pay more than 5%. 5% is my ceiling, my max. Even if LIBOR moves above 5%, it's additional terms and conditions. If not mentioned, wherever LIBOR goes, borrower will pay that rate. If mentioned, LIBOR exceeds that threshold, maybe 5, 6, whatever they decided, the borrower will pay the max rate. So this terms and condition is known as ceiling. It's easy to remember. In this room, what is the ceiling? Do you know? This one, right? So we are actually fixing the upside. They can also decide, even if LIBOR drops below 2.5%, borrower cannot pay less than 2.5%. This is called floor. This is our floor, right? It's kind of deciding the range. So most of the cases, even if they want to add this kind of terms, they basically add one of the other. Maybe single, maybe plural. One of the other. Sometimes, very rarely, they will say both. If they say both, that is called color. If they fix both sides, up and down, color. If they fix one of the other, ceiling is the max, floor is the min. Make sense? Question so far. Floating rate bonds, terms and conditions. Good? Okay. Let's talk about some different types of bonds. So far we talked about coupons, below coupons, floating rate. Let's talk about something else. And also, when I define this type of bonds, you will answer for this specific type of bonds, should the YTM or required return will be higher or lower? As investors, if you want to invest in this specific type of bonds as compared to a regular bonds, do you want more return or less return? So you have to understand, if investing anywhere in this world is risky, you need more return. If investing anywhere in this world is safer, you need less return. Make sense? In finance, loss is not important. In finance, risk is important. If we talk about catastrophe bond, what is a catastrophe bond? Issued by insurance company, mostly. Insurance company, property casualty insurance company. Let's say I'm an insurance company, AAA Insurance. I don't know if you guys know the name or not. AAA Insurance Company. You are the investors. I issued the bond, and bond has very regular characteristics. Very regular, nothing special. Very regular characteristics. Let's say in 5 years, coupon 3%, face value 1,000, something like that. Very, very similar characteristics, generally. But when it's a catastrophe bond, there is a special provision on it. What is the special provision? If no disaster happened, no catastrophe happened, it will work like a regular bond. Just regular. Each period, being an issuer, I pay you this rate. Being an investor, you receive this rate until expiration. But if any catastrophe happened, if disaster happened, I will use the face value to pay for the catastrophe that happened rather than paying you back at expiration. And if disaster happened, I will use this money that you give me, and you're supposed to get this face value at expiration. I'm not going to give it to you. Rather, I'll use that money for the disaster experience. Insurance company, they actually issue this kind of bonds because in history, there are some years when they have more claims than premiums. And maybe let's say Katrina, hurricane, those kind of cyclone happens in coastal areas, lot of damages in real property, right? An insurance company has to pay back those claims, right? If those things happen, insurance company will use the face value to pay those claims rather than paying the investors at expirations. So what do you think if you want to invest in catastrophe bonds? More return, less return?
It depends on whether or not you think a catastrophe is going to happen.
That's a good point. But there is a built-in conditions. If catastrophe happens, are you going to get the face value? Let's say it's a generic bond. It's a generic bond. Catastrophe happens or not, doesn't matter, right? You'll always get the face value, right? You'll get the periodic payments, you get the face value, right? In a catastrophe bond, what is the special provision? If catastrophe happens, you are not going to get your investment, right? As compared to a generic bond versus this catastrophe bond, what do you think? Which one is more risky? Catastrophic bond is more risky, right? Because there is always the probability of a thing happening in this world, right? Even if it could be 0.00001, but there is always a probability in this world that something can happen, right? So we need higher return, right? Makes sense for catastrophe bonds. Income bonds. So income bonds is a kind of mixture of dividend payments and interest payments. Let me explain. Think about same characteristics. Okay? When we talk about income bonds, it depends on whether the corporations have generated sufficient income to pay this periodic coupon or not. If yes, they will pay you the fixed coupon. If no, they will not pay you the fixed coupon. But you cannot sue them or you cannot tell them file for bankruptcy. In a regular bond, if corporations do not pay you periodic coupons, what is the implications? Being a bondholder, you can force them for filing bankruptcy, right? In an income bond, even if they do not have the income to cover your interest payment, they can force it. Is it good for you? Bad for you? What do you think? Being a bondholder. Always remember, being a bondholder, you will never enjoy the growth. If corporations do not pay you interest this year, 5 years down the line, they make a lot of money, Stockholders will enjoy that. Being a bondholder, you will not. So, being stockholders, if you do not get the dividend this year, but you can think of 5 years later, my company will be a big one. It's good for you. It's not good for bondholder. So if you invest in income bonds and the corporation is not doing well to pay you periodic coupon payments, good for you, bad for you. Good or bad?
It's bad for you because you're not going to get you.
So if it's bad for you, do you want more return, less return? More return, right? So also for income bonds, you want higher return. Questions? Convertible bonds. Convertible. Think about convertible bonds, right? It has two different shapes. Convertible bonds. So when you talk about convertible bonds, it comes with additional feature. And the feature is on the discretion of the investors, at expirations, it can be converted to stocks. And if it's converted to stocks, all those ratio, like one bond should be 5 stocks or one bond should be 3 stocks, something like that. All those ratios should be pre-decided at the date of issue. Now, if you invest in a bond and the lender, the corporation, sorry, borrower, the corporations issuing you a convertible bond and giving you the right to convert the bond into stock at expiration, is it good for you or bad for you? Because if you think at expiration, the corporation's not doing well, you can say, I don't want the conversion. At expiration, if you think the corporation is doing really, really well, I can see a good future, then you can do the conversion, right? Good for you, bad for you. So when it's good for you, that is less risky, right? Do you want higher return? Lower it. Absolutely. Food bonds is exactly upside down of callable bonds. Callable bonds, putable bonds. What is a callable bonds?
Callable bond is one that the corporation can sort of recall if they feel like the interest rate doesn't really match the market anymore.
So what is the specific characteristics of interest rate has to be so that corporations are motivated to call? Market interest rate should be higher, similar, or lower. What gonna motivate corporations to call? Think out from a borrower perspective. If you borrow for your auto loan or home loan, okay? Think out from the borrower perspective. Corporation is the borrower, right? One of the good thing in finance is like you can generalize everything in your real life example. Think about your corporations, you borrow for your home loan. When you will call, if the
Low.
absolutely, if the interest rate is low, right? Because you can go for another borrowing at lower rate, and with that money, you can pay existing loan with higher rate, right? Now flip it. Go to the investor side. Go to the investor side. If you're investors, you already invested in some sort of bond, when you will force the borrower, hey, give my money back. Interest rate low, high, or similar? Absolutely. So putable bond gives the investor the right to go to the corporations and ask for the money before maturity. And what should be the natural concern? Investor go and ask for the money because from the issuance to now, right now, interest rate is higher. So if investors get the money back from the corporations, they can invest in higher rates. So if any bond comes with a put provision, from the investor perspective, good or bad? From the investor perspective, it's good or bad? Because it will give you some additional right. If needed, you can ask for the money before maturity. Is it a good thing for you or bad thing for you? Good thing, right? So good thing means there is less risky, less risk. You want high return, low return. Higher, lower?
Or
Higher, why? It's good for you, less risk. Higher, lower? Low return. When something is good, something less risky for you, you want lower return, right? Questions about different types of bonds. Catastrophe, income, convertible, put. So basically, corporate bonds comes with a lot of different provisions. So if you want to be a bond investor going forward, your job is to think about what if without the provisions versus with the provisions, which gives me a better state of the world. If without the provisions, I have less risk, I should ask for lower return. If with the provision, I have more risk, I should ask for higher return. So you have to compare very generic versus generic plus the provisions. Whatever gives you lower risk, you should require lower return. Make sense? Okay. So this is some basic example of how bond markets in the industry or in the market look like. So bond markets mostly are over-the-counter market. So when you say over-the-counter, it means it is not an established secondary market like NYSE, NASDAQ, something like that. That means it has lower liquidity. If you invest in any bond, later on you want to trade for liquidity because you want to get out of it. And if your instrument is traded on the over-the-counter market, it will have lower liquidity. But the exception is treasury securities, because the market for the secondary market for treasury instruments is highly liquid. Highly liquid. So this is the exceptions. So this is something an order book of treasury instruments look like. So when you say order book means buyer shows their buying quote or buying price, seller shows their selling price. And then they are sorted in a way, best buyer, which is offering the max price, best seller, which is asking the cheapest price, will come first. If you look carefully, the buyer offering the max price comes first, lower, right? Seller offering the most price will come forward. So that's kind of the order book. But if you look here, this is a little different because those are basically different bonds. Okay? So they only showed the best buyer and best seller. But in an order book, there will be more buyers, more sellers. Best buyer, best seller in terms of buyer offering max price, seller offering cheap price. In bond market, bond setting, the word quotation is important. Quotation or quote is important. When you say a bond is quoted at 99% or 97%, let's say this one. It means this bond will be traded 99% of the face value. If face value is 1,000, right now bond will be traded at $99. Make sense? So quotation is important. It's telling you at what percentage of the face value the bond will be traded now or on the market. Now let's solve these two problems. And then we move forward. Did you guys need the formula for current use? Right? We went over it, right, on the last class. Annual coupon here, the price. So the only trick here is the price code. I think I explained. So it means 102% of the face value. Right now, the price should be 102% of the face value. Other than that, it's all easy. So anyone done with the problem one? No. So for problem one, face value is 1,000. Your price is basically 102.54% of 1,000. So that should be, that is the price. Your coupon should be 5.5% of 1,000 is 55. right? Now your current yield should be here. 55 over 1. So 1,000 face value given, 5.5% coupon given, so coupon payment is 55. Current price code 102.54. That means right now the price is 102% of face value. So the price is 102.54% of 1,000, which is this one. Current hit formula, annual coupon, then the price. Makes sense? That's the answer for problem 1. If you do the similar process, you should be able to do problem 2, right? Now, problem 2, how much you got? Okay, let's see. How much you got?
5.3.
Okay. Anyone not getting 5.39, something else? Same process. Face value 10,000, right? Quoted at 101.78, so price should be 101.78% of 10,000, right? That should be 101.78, right? That should be the price. And then current yield is 5.3%. So current yield is basically this formula, right? So 101.78 times 5.3%. Right? So how much you got here, coupon payment? Right? 39.43. Okay, now we know face value is 10,000, so coupon rate should be 539.43 divided by 10,000. Right? So 5.3943%. Right? If you think you struggle, feel free to raise your hand. Questions? Good so far? Okay. Now, clean versus dirty price. Let's say we're talking about a 4-year bond, okay? Face value 1,000, coupon rate 5%, right? So that being said, on the timeline, it should be 50, 50, 50, 50, and 1,000, right? If any bond is traded only on the settlement dates, then it's easy. Easy in a way, the seller keeps the current coupon and the buyer is entitled of upcoming coupon. So let's say we want to transact this bond end of year 1. I'm the existing investors, you are the new investors. So I hold the bond for this entire 1 year, right? So that means I deserve this coupon, right? And then if I sell you the bond, you deserve these 3 coupons. Corporations pay the coupon, I kept it, now I'm selling it to you. You will deserve all 3 existing coupons. Easy, right? What if we want to trade the bond in the middle of settlement days? In the middle of settlement days. If we say exactly on the half, exactly 1 year and 6 months, I want to trade my bonds, sell my bonds. If you look carefully, I already received this coupon, right? But if I sell you the bond here, as the new owner, you will receive these 3 coupons, right? However, I hold the bond for 6 months. So for this entire 1 year, for the entire second year, I hold it for 6 months. As a new owner, you will hold it for 6 months, but why should you deserve? Why should you deserve the entire coupon, right? So we have to be careful. That's why in bond there are 2 prices: clean price, the dirty price. If any bond is traded in the middle of the settlement date, clean price means what is quoted on the market. What is quoted on the market? That is the clean price. And dirty price means clean price plus this fractional coupon payment. As a new buyer, you have to pay me because I hold the bond for the 6 months. So I deserve $25 of coupon. That's I deserve because I hold it for 6 months, half of the period. I deserve half of the coupon. So whatever quoted on the market is a clean price, plus you also have to pay me the fractional coupon that I deserve. That is called dirty price. Make sense? It's easy to calculate the fractional coupon. Easy. So quoted price is what is given on the market, on the exchange, on the over-the-counter transactions. So you have to pay that. However, fractional coupon is easy to calculate. You have to find the absolute coupon payment, and then you have to separate out how much old buyer hold the bond and how much the new buyer will hold the bond. And you have to just separate out in terms of days count. Make sense? In terms of days count. So let's think about this bond. 4% semi-annual. Okay. Clean price from the market, 1282. Face value of 1,000. Now on the transaction day, old buyer, old investors held it for 61 days. And the inter-settlement period is 184 days. Make sense? Because if you go for the actual days count, 6 months is not 180 days, right? Because January, March, they have 31 days, right? So you have to go for actual day count. Actual. It's not 6 months, 180 days. No, actual day count. Old buyer held it for 61 days. Total period of the 6 months is 184. Now 4% of 1,000 fraction by actual days count is $13.26 coupon. That is the old investors entitled for, because the old investors held it for 61 days. That's it, just a fraction. Find the total coupon payment and then find how much or how many days old investors held it. Order price plus the fraction of coupon that should be entitled to the old investor. And some of them are derivative articles. Makes sense? Clean price, dirty price. Questions? Now we're going to talk about Fisher effect. So we have $100, right? We can consume it today. If we have $100, let's say we have $100, we can either consume it today, or we can make an investment for 1 year, right? If we want to make an investment for 1 year, what is we are losing today? The consumption. So that means if we want to forego our consumption today for these investments, we need some minimum sort of return, right? So when you say expected return or required return, we're trying to say what is the at least or minimum return we should earn if we commit the money for 1 year. So that is kind of the definition for expected return or required rate of return. Now, when you talk about the expected return or required rate of return, there are at least 2 factors. The first factor is real return, real rate of interest, any way you define. So the real return means the return you are getting for delaying the consumption. The return you are getting for delaying the consumption. That is called the real return. Because if I consume $100, let's say I bought 20 burgers and eat it today alone. If I consume it, I get the utility today, right? But if I delay these consumptions for 1 year, I'm delaying the utility for 1 year. So losing these consumptions, I should be compensated for. So you can think about if you compensated for only delaying your consumptions, this is called real rate of return or real rate of interest. Because you're delaying the consumption. Now, over the period, there could be inflation. So going to Walmart last year versus going to Walmart now, is it same? Is the price level still the same? What is the change? Price level went high a lot, right? So if you're delaying the consumption, it is also possible that 1 year later, the burger will cost more, right? Given the same money, you should not be able to buy similar quantity of burger 1 year later, right? Right? So that means if you want to invest, delay the consumption, you should also be compensated for any change in your purchase power, which is by inflation. So when you talk about inflation, you have to understand the definition. When you talk about inflation, that means persistent increase in the price level over time. Persistent increase in the price level over time. Compare the egg price in Walmart in last 2 years. Did you see any persistent increase? Right? Compare the gas price. Did you see any persistent increase? It used to be like $1.50 or at least less than $2. Is it $2 anymore? So persistent increase. So this is the thing introduced by Fisher. That's why it is called Fisher effect. Fisher is the first guy who actually argued that if you want to make any investments, it's not about only dealing the consumption that we should be compensated for. It also like over time, our purchase power can go down because of inflation. We should also be compensated for inflation. So basically in Fisher world, this rate or this return is known as nominal return. Nominal return. So any rate we talk about in this world, any rate, let's say investing or putting money in a bank, getting 2%. Nominal return. Investing in stock for 1 year, generate 10%. Nominal return. Any return we talk about is basically nominal return. According to Fisher, nominal return is a function of 1 plus real return multiplied by 1 plus inflation minus 1. This is a good approximation. This is a good approximation, but this is not the right equation. This is the right equation. So Fisher told it's a good approximation, but this is the right equation, which is multiplicative term, okay? Not the addition term. So according to Fisher, inflation is important, and we should be compensated for not only the real rate of return, which is compensating us for delaying the consumptions, but also inflation. Going forward, we'll talk about nominal return is a function of a lot of other factors, not only real and inflation. It's a function of a lot of other factors, maybe default risks, maybe liquidity risk, maybe a lot of other risks. But in Fisher world, nominal return is a function of only these two components. Make sense? But we are not living Fisher world anymore, but we just want to know what is the Fisher world. Because nominal return is a function of a lot of different factors: real return, inflation, price risk, default risk, a lot of other risks. This is the formula we are talking about. Nominal rate or nominal return is a function of real rate, inflation. It's an approximation. Now, if 10% is real return and inflation is 8%, what is the nominal rate? 10% real return, 8% inflation. What is the nominal rate? Plug in the values here. 1.1, 1.08, minus 1, right? Just plug in the value here. And that should give you 18.8%, right? Just plug in the value. Also plug in the value in the approximation formula. It's gonna give you 18% only, right? It's a good approximation, but not the right one. Makes sense. So now if you think you invested somewhere and that is giving you 5% return and you are happy, after this class, you should not be happy anymore because right now the inflation is more than 6%. So that means if you're making the investments, you are compensating for real return, maybe, but you are not compensating for inflation, right? So if you're making investments, make sure you should at least compensate for these two, at least. But there are a lot of other factors needs to be compensated for, which we learn in the upcoming classes. Any questions about Fisher effect? Term structure of interest rate. Okay. So what is term structure of interest rate? So far we know bond could have maturity of different years, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 6, 7, 8 could be different years, right? So in the market, there is interest rate for each bonds having different maturities. In the market, there is interest rate for each bonds having different maturities. So if we plot the yield and its respective maturities on the graph, that is called term structure of interest rate. So let's say hypothetically in the market, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Let's say hypothetically in the market, 1-year bond, the market interest rate is 1%. 2-year bond, 2%, 3-year 2%, 4%, 5%. So the graph. This is some structure of interest rate. It's trying to tell you if you invest for longer maturity, you will earn more, right? Make sense? If you invest for longer maturity, you earn more. So term structure of interest rate actually tells you the relationship between the yield and the maturity of your investments. So it could be even opposite too. What you can think of? This is the term structure of interest rate. If you invest for longer maturity, you want more or less? Less, right? So that can also be a possibility. So this is also known as yield curve. Also known as yield curve. So depending on the situations, market can have positive or negative term structure of interest rate. Because right now, Fed is trying to do cut short-term spending, cut short-term borrowing. But to keep up the overall economic growth, Fed wants long-term investments. So that's why a couple of months before, short-term interest rate was more than long-term interest rate. Because Fed wants short-term borrowing to be more costly than long-term borrowing. If Fed want to do that, term structure of interest rate could be like this. Short-term borrowing is more costly than long-term borrowing. Make sense? So depending on the motivations of the economic growth or something else, it could be anything. It could be made flat. Doesn't matter if you invest or borrow for 1 year or 5 years, same yield, same cost, same return. It could be made flat. Makes sense. Yield curve, term structure of interest rate. Now, if you look at this stuff. So for beyond, you should earn real rate, right? And should earn inflation premium, right? So basically, this graph is trying to tell you that yield you're generating has different components. And from this graph, what we can tell, real rate is fixed. Over the years, inflation premium is positive. It has to be, because the more you delay, right now it is possible that it will be more expensive, right? For your food, for your house, for your car, it will be more expensive, right? So the more you invest for, the more inflation premium you earn, right? And then interest rate is. Maybe if price changes, if interest changes, 1% go down, right? So this is called interest rates. So we're going to talk about this one later, because after real inflation, a lot of different factors. Long story short, if you look at the yield curve, what are the minimum things you should earn? Real and inflation, at least. And then a lot of other factors. Real rate is kind of fixed over the years, but if you invest for more, it is possible that impact of inflation will be more, right? So you should earn more inflation. However, this is a reverse case. This is trying to tell you real rate is fixed, but over the years, inflation will go down. Which is kind of tough to have in the real world. Over the years, inflation will go down. So that's why term structure is negative. Real is fixed, inflation will go down. However, interest rates will go down too, which is also tough to happen in real world. Because if you can remember, if you invest for more years, a lot of price risk, right? Due to interest rate changes, right? If yield curve looks like negative slope, this could be the possible explanations, but maybe tough to actually real one. But if yield curve looks like this is the possible explanations and more practical and similar to real one. Make sense? But sometimes, depending on the motivations, they actually prefer different yield curve. Okay, so as we are talking about, it's not about only real rate and inflation. When we talk about nominal return, nominal yield to maturity, it's not about only real rate inflation. It's real rate, inflation, interest rate, default risk, liquidity premium, and it's sort of taxability premium. Because municipal bonds are tax exempted. All other bonds are taxable, right? So any sort of yield curve should compensate for real rate, inflation, interest rate risk, default risk, taxable premium, individual premium. So now we know these two, right? Real rate of interest, inflation, interest rate risk. We know that due to interest rate fluctuations for our investments, we have price risk and investment risk, right? Price can go down, and also all of our coupon may be reinvested in lower rates, right? Default risk. Borrower will default at expirations. At expirations, you may not get the face value. Default risk. You should get the premium for this. Taxability premium. Municipal bonds are tax exempted. Corporate bonds are not. If you need to invest in corporate bonds, you should require MOVIL, right? Liquidity premium. Very important factor. If you invest 1 year versus 5 years, what is the difference? If you invest 1 year versus 5 years, what is the difference? Major difference is you are committing the money for shorter versus longer time period, right? So to make a commitment for longer time period, what do you need? Liquidity premium. And also, if you invest for longer time period, it is in practice, it is shown that.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
It is shown that secondary market is not liquid. Bonds for shorter time periods are more liquid than longer time period. So that's why you should also get the liquidity premium. Make sense? So these are the factors that should affect your yield or nominal return. Now, this is the problem you should do at home. On the next class, we have some answers. Make sense? So that's all so far. See you on Thursday.